that coma that you go through in the early 20s and all, and you wake up, and like, man, some things ain't worth it. It ain't worth giving up some things to go get that extra 100, that extra 2, that extra, you know what I mean? You start to wake up a little bit and see we're selling out some important things in life. But why did they offer Delilah money? Her name means poor, basic. Now I'm sure if your name's Delilah here, there's somebody come up with better meanings to the name, but biblically, poor, abased, basic, common, that's all she was. They flashed some money, and with that, oh man, I can become whoever I want to be. I can step up in the world. I can be something. I can be somebody. Oh man, I can have it. That's why he done it to her. Why did Samson fall? The pleasures. Why? Because he thought he couldn't be stopped. He said, man, I've been up against the greatest. I've killed a lion. I took a jawbone of an ass and slew him. Ain't nothing they can do to me. Pride welled up inside of him. He thought he couldn't be stopped. Oftentimes we do that. We might not say it that way, but oftentimes, man, we get to walking for God, and we'll start out on our knees, and before you know it, we're standing up. We're still pretty humble. Before you know it, our chest is poked out, shoulders back. I'm a self-made man, and boy, I've done some things in my life. I can't be stopped. Woo, that's a recipe for disaster. Samson was resting upon his own strength and his own ability. He had some abilities. He had strength. But he started to rely on that more than God. And that is a recipe every time for disaster. When we leave God, we leave His presence, we leave His guidance and His wisdom, well, we're going to fall every time. Every time. Every single time. Amen. He depended on his own strength. But you know, the most amazing thing about this whole passage in the Bible here, it wasn't Samson falling, because, I mean, if you live for God long enough, you start to see what he was doing. He knew eventually he's going to fall. But if you read through the story, for time's sake, we won't read it all, it's the whole chapter or better. I mean, Delilah told Samson exactly what she wanted. She didn't come up to him and deceive him. She didn't come up to him and say, you know, I want you to come over here for this reason, but I'm really going to do this. You read the story, she told him and asked him point blank, where in it does your strength lie? Where is it? That we may get thee and bind thee. Read it. She come flat out and asked him. I mean, normally we'll get up and we'll testify, we'll talk about, man, I got blindsided. I never saw that coming. That's not how Delilah went after him. She went straight to him. And sometimes sin doesn't always get us blindsided. It comes straight at us. It goes straight for us. And we know and we know and we know exactly what it wants. And Samson played around with Delilah. Amen. And he was over there toying with the Philistines. You read the story of it. I mean, it says, get some green rope and tie me up so it ain't rotten. Get some of that rope and bind me, and surely you'll have me. He broke them as like twigs, is what it was telling us. He just snapped them like little strings. Wow, he was showing off. And he got an amusement out of it. He was amused by it all. Still not realizing that each step that he took towards that direction was getting him deeper and deeper into sin. And further away from God. He still had his power, obviously. He still had his might. See, we can toy around with sin, and we'll still have our power. We'll still have the presence of God. God will give us some leeway. But Samson should have realized real quick that he was going wrong, because they trained him. He was born as a Nazarite. He was not to do what? Cut his hair, drink any wine, eat any or touch any unclean thing. And he was doing all those before he fell. So he knew better. I mean, you read the story, Samson knew better before he ever went to the valley. And it said, why did it tell us it was a harlot woman? Because it had to be an unclean thing. It was letting us know he knew better, but he done it anyways. That's just like us. You'll never sin. I mean, I ain't saying never, but 99.99% of the time. All right, let's just say that. I don't like to really say never, but when it comes to things like that, you'll most of the time never sin. And God not warn you before you do it. And you not know better before you commit it. Every time. Every single time. Before we make excuses of why we're not going to be at Sunday night service, some of you might have already made those, so let me hit that. Amen. Or Wednesday night, or amen. Before we make those excuses to back up on God or not do something for the Lord or to sin, God has already showed you that it's wrong. He's already showed you that you're putting something ahead of Him. But what do we do anyways? You say, boy, if God showed me that, I surely wouldn't do it. Yeah, you do, and you are, and you will. That's what we do. All of us, man. So before he ever took that step and got involved with Delilah, he was already doing something he knew better than. That's what we all do. Every time. Every time. Now, it wasn't that he fell, but the fact that he taught her, she told him point blank. And Samson knew exactly what she was after. But also, Samson knew what was at stake. But see, that wasn't the main thing in the front of his head at that time. That wasn't the main thought process of Samson at that time. Man, he loved Delilah. Something about Delilah. Something about it. But he knew what was at stake because they knew if you let them get a hold of you, and this is where your power lies, and they're asking you point blank. They're asking you over and over. See, most of the time we know what's at stake. If we mess around with sin and we mess around with things that we shouldn't be messing around with, we are jeopardizing some things, as Samson was every time he toyed around with the Philistines and entertained Delilah. He was in jeopardy of losing the power that God had given him. And every time we toy around with sin, every time we entertain those of the world that we should not be entertaining or hanging around, we jeopardize losing our power that God has given us. Power what? Power of your name. The power of your testimony. I mean, your name is all you got in this world. And God gives you a great testimony when you get saved. But we're in jeopardy of harming it and bringing shame to it and hurting it when we don't listen to Him. And we know that's at stake before we do it. Over and over again. Amen. I know it gets a little quiet when you don't sin. Amen. But it's the truth. Amen. So we said Delilah. Let's look at this real quick. The name Delilah, it means poor, small, or languishing, and many other things. We're going to look at those three. Now, I mean, that's real interesting to this story. Samson, a man of mighty strength and the power of God. The devil will take something poor, basic, and make it look glamorous to you. That's what he does. Every time. Every time. I mean, we do it. You ever go eat at a restaurant and somebody told you to go eat at, man, this is the best place. You've got to try this. It's the best food in the world. You've got to eat the steak. You've got to have this piece of chicken. And they'll build that thing up so big. And then when you get there, I mean, it's not that it was bad, but it was way oversold. You bite into it, it's like, man, I could have cooked this at the house. It saved about $1,000. I mean, the napkin was worth the $20. When they got $20 napkins laying there, you need to walk out.
Oh, yeah.
Or take a few of them with you. But you ever had that happen to you? Oversold. Man, you need to go try this place, or you need to go to this place. And it's out of this world. And you're just disappointed once you get the end result. That's how sin is. Most of us adults, we know that. But listen up, you teenagers, those in high school, younger ones. Everybody. That's how sin is. It paints a beautiful picture. It paints a nice canvas of what is, I mean, it's going to be so nice. Yeah. And it's going to be so dreamy. And it's going to be awesome. And it's going to be the best experience of your life. And better than anything. And boy, before the time it's all said and done, you're left there disappointed. It took something that was just basic and poor, amen, and languishing, and it made it glamorous. That's what Satan does. Every time. Sparkles it. Sparkles it. Well, like using a nice fishing lure, trying to get a bass to come and bite on the top. Or you get something that shines a little bit. Man, here they come off them beds. Boom! That's how we bite too. Poor. So we see her name means poor. He'll take something that's poor and make it sparkle. But on the surface it'll sparkle. But underneath is sin and death, disease and loss. When he looked at Delilah, he didn't see poor. He saw sparkle. He saw glamour. He saw all those things. You ever see these young couples, man? We're all there. Man, I just love that person. The love of my life. You find them when you're in 7th grade. They're the love of my life. They're just the love of my life. There's not another one in the world. They're just, why? Because they're sparkling. They're shining up like a new penny. But you don't even remember their names. You don't. You don't remember who they were. That's how sin is. Underneath it all, sin and loss. Her name also means small. She wasn't just another woman at first. I mean, she was Delilah. I mean, he went down all the time in this valley searching for harlots and searching for pleasure. I mean, anything he wanted, Samson thought, I could have it. Nothing can conquer me. Nothing can overcome me. I am Samson. Well, we'll do that. We'll get to that way of thinking. We're a dangerous ground. We got to be careful. But her name meant poor. He didn't see poor. He didn't see small. When he looked at her, man, he thought, oh, this is the one. This is what I got to have. This is the one for me. This is it. What happened? It was all said and done. Small. Small. See, what's the Bible say about things like that? I believe it's Galatians chapter 5, verse 9. What's it say about leaven when it comes to bread? A little leaven. Yeah. See, he thought that this was just another girl, another sin. We'll toy around with the small sins. We'll toy around with the little things and think, well, I can get away with it. And that's how it started with Samson. It started small. But that situation rapidly got out of hand. That's how it does in our lives. We'll start small. We'll miss one service. We'll miss another service. Before you know it, that one small way of thinking becomes so big. And now it's consumed us. It's no longer a small thing anymore. It has changed everything about us. And it has overcome our life. Just like Delilah. I imagine when Samson was sitting there in that prison, they had him bound. I imagine he sat there and thought, man, she was just another one. Not this time. Not this time. Poor, small, a little leaven, leaveneth the whole lump. That's all it takes for Satan to get in. What did he tell Eve? He told her, what? A little lie. Thou shalt not surely die. Thou shalt not surely die. That's what he'll tell you. That's what he tells us. He tells us a little lie so that we'll bite into a hook, line, and sinker, and before you know it, he has corrupted the whole lump. That's why we got to be careful, church. See, it starts in our houses. It starts in our homes. And then it gets into the church. And it'll leaveneth the whole lump. That's why we got to be careful. Started out small. Oh, it's no big deal. Oh, but it became a big deal. And then the last thing on her name means languishing. To become feeble, weak, decay, fade, sag, waste away, or wither. What was the end result of Samson? Now we're getting to close here. Brother Philip, you come on. What was the end result of Samson? Now before we get to verse number 22, up to this point, he looked at a situation that she looked poor, small, no big deal, and it led to what? Languishing. Where he was withering, and wasting away, blind. So they didn't just take his strength. When they got a hold of him, they took his eyesight from him. Gouged out his eyes. Sin will take you further than you'll ever want to go and make you stay longer than you'll ever want to stay. That's what sin does, church. That's what it does to us. And I know we hear sin is bad, this is good. I mean, we all know that. But sometimes we don't live that way. We're so immune to certain things of preaching, we allow it to deflect off of us. But we need to take hold of the Word of God this morning and realize that it starts small and it starts with little things. And then once we let it inside of us, it begins to blossom and destroy us and decay us. Languishing was another word for her name. Wither away, to decay. And that's what sin does to us. Sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. James chapter 1, verse 15. When it is finished, bringeth forth death. In the end, Samson was alone, had no strength. He had no one by his side. He had no one worshiping the strength that he had. He was sitting alone. That's where sin put him. So many people today, so many Christians today, they are lonely, they're sitting in sin, and from the inside out, they're decaying. Why? Because it started small. We could be there tomorrow. We could be there tomorrow. Let's look, as we close, let's look at the last verse here, that chapter. We'll close here. Verse 21 says this, but the Philistines took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with fetters of brass. Brass in the Bible always means judgment. It speaks to judgment and purity. It was all what he deserved. What he was getting was what he deserved. Church, if we don't heed the call and we play around with sin, the Bible refers to the appearance of Christ in Revelations. It talks about his feet being like brass and pure brass. And what does that represent? Judgment. But not only judgment, but pure judgment. His judgment upon us will be righteous and pure if we don't heed his call. If we die without Christ, we're lost sinners on our way to hell, and we don't heed the call to salvation, his judgment will be righteous and pure. Every time. If we play around with sin, see, Samson didn't lose it all right away. Samson dabbled in it. Samson danced in it. Samson entertained it. But then in the end, it grabbed a hold of him like it will us all. All of us. If we don't heed the call, and when God warns us to quit playing around with it, quit messing with it, quit dancing with it, because it's going to bite you one day. And he lost it all. But let me give you a little hope at the end of the tunnel. Plucked out his eyes, see, he lost more than what he thought he'd ever lose. Samson was never the same after that. But look at verse number 22. The Bible says this, howbeit the hair of his head began to grow after he was shaven. After he was shaven. As began to play softly, Brother Philip. Sometimes life does get a hold of us. Sometimes sin does win. Sometimes it wins so much that it does kick us in the teeth. It beats us down. It gets us to a depressed state, as we talked last week. It gets us to a place to where we don't feel like going nowhere, doing nothing, moving. It gets us to where we're blinded. Our eyes spiritually are plucked out. We can't see nothing that God has for us anymore. We get to that point. But in the story, we know that what did God do? He didn't leave Samson. Though Samson got pure and righteous judgment. What happened? His hair began to grow again. No matter what life brings us through, no matter how bad choices we made up to this point, spiritually your hair can grow again. Spiritually you can get back on track for God. Spiritually, now it's not going to be an easy road. And his hair didn't grow back overnight, but he began